Hello and welcome. Continuing with your comments and questions. Someone writes, they recently read a sutta about the Buddha taming a wild elephant and found it really cool. Will I be able to do that if I practice good enough? Oh, if you practice good enough, you'll be able to do anything you want to, because you'll want less and be satisfied with more. But in relation to this sutta, which I think is the Dantabhumi Sutta, where the Buddha's relating this training of our mind, or training of bhikkhus in that specifically, to that of training a wild elephant. Something that happens here, but I'm not going to talk about that. I never talk about anything even vaguely controversial. I leave that to other people. But training of horses, likewise, when they're wild, they need to be trained nicely, kindly, in order that you can use them for a purpose, riding or hauling logs. And in this sutta, I think he's not personally training, that may be in one of the Jataka tales, when he's a mahout, an elephant trainer or something like that. But anyway, in this situation, training the mind, we drive in a stake to the ground, attach the wild animal, horse or elephant, and it runs around and round until it eventually calms down. Much like our training in meditation, we use, figuratively speaking, the stake is our object of meditation. So the breath, we stake, we attach our wild horses of brains, thinking brains, to this stake, a meditation object, so that eventually, after going round and round and round, it will calm down, wear out, and come back to a center point, the meditation object. So this is the analogy in that sutta, the Dantabhumi Sutta. So I don't read suttas or repeat them and quote them in Pali. I can leave that for you to do. They're fully available, access to Insight or Sutta Central on the internet, or simply Google a sutta about the Buddha and an elephant. It will come up, Dantabhumi Sutta. That's what I did. I'm not that clever, I couldn't remember the name of it. I Googled it and up it comes straight away, the summary. No problem at all. You can all do that if you're watching this. So there's no point me reciting Pali verse. But yeah, it's a great idea, a great sutta. And, you know, in terms of what you'll be able to do, you will, as I said, be able to do anything that you want to, because you'll want less and be satisfied with more. This is the practice. So the next part of the question you go on to speak about, and I was thinking about this as well, that do animals have that which knows? So with that, I think you're referring to what I refer to as the citta, so the mind, as opposed to the thinking brain, that which knows what the thinking brain even is doing. When we're happy, we know we're happy. When we're sad, we know we're sad. But that which knows we're happy and that which knows we're sad isn't necessarily happy or sad. It is non-judgmental, just knowing with clarity, clearly seeing that emotional experience for what it is, just that. So, on that note, do animals have this? Well, I'm not sure I know. They are probably, I would think, have minds. And they have the karma or karmic effect, vipaka. So karma, their actions, will have results, vipaka. And what your question goes on to say is, are they just running around on instincts with no awareness? I think not. I think most sentient beings actually have fear and want to live. Otherwise they wouldn't live, they wouldn't survive. If you try to, however kindly, remove an insect from your room, an ant or something, or a spider, it will do all its very best. Even though you're trying to help it, it thinks you're trying to attack it, so it will try to run away in its own defense. So it has fear, which would indicate that they have an element of will and decision making. So of course they're sentient beings, which we are why we're kind to them. But how is it that an animal can create good karma to move up to the human realm and eventually enlightenment? Because of course it is impossible as an animal. No, not impossible. What we must try to not do is work out by way of calculus, by way of science, the exact equations of karma. The Buddha said you can never do that because of countless previous lifetimes. Karma can, its results, vipaka, can manifest at any given point in the future. So it might not necessarily be that you're born into the animal realm in this lifetime because of the immediate lifetime preceding this lifetime. It could have been many before, and so on. And this is impossible for us to get our minds around. And he says our heads will literally explode if we try to understand karma in that way. But we can understand it in the way that doing good creates good, doing bad creates bad. But as an animal, of course, you've little opportunity to listen to the Dharma, to do much by way of goodness, good service, the things we attribute to development on the path towards enlightenment. I'm going to have to take a little break whilst this animal, knowing it's interrupts. Sorry, that was just a few seconds interruption. It was I think it's the people selling something with leaflets in a bag, about half a dozen men all going round. And they found someone walking down the track and they stopped right by where the dog is stationed. So it won't stop barking until they stop trying to sell whatever they're selling. So I asked them to politely go to the other end of the track or somewhere where the dog won't be clearly not liking their presence. I would have thought that would be fairly clear to them. Anyway, animals. Where were we at? Yeah, now animals and their karma. So it could be said that once you're in the animal realm, you're stuck there. Well, not necessarily, because you may have just been gone there. You may have ended up in the animal realm because of something you've done, and you need to pay back bad karma, put it in simple terms. So for what bad you've done, your punishment is to be a dog next door or down there for a lifetime. But it doesn't mean you will remain as such. What got me thinking about it was that you find that some animals are in more fortunate positions, not just because of the way they're treated, but by the way that they are able to behave. So this little cat, not my cat, someone else's cat that visits me, has the opportunity to sit here. It will be given food, so it's not going out killing for its food if it's here. Not to say that she doesn't other times. So therefore reducing the bad karma she's creating. And also she's very pleasant company for me to have around. And no trouble. And if, you could say that that is doing good. This is the few and the various opportunities that animals get, but they're not necessarily stuck there forever. But it is indeed more difficult to escape the animal realm than, of course, the human realm. The ideal place to be born is the human realm, whereby we can listen to the teachings of this Sasana, the Buddha, this Buddha Sasana, this period of time. He said that this Buddhism that we know it as it is will be around. The Buddha predicted 5,000 years. So we're halfway through that at 2,568 or so. So it wasn't around long, but it wasn't around for a long time before that, and might not necessarily be around for a long time after it. So not even the human realm is ideal unless you discover and become the Buddha yourself, as this Buddha did, because there was no Dharma for him to listen to. He became the perfectly enlightened one by his own efforts and practice and realization. seeing clearly into the insights and characteristics of existence, and therefore entering into through these stages of enlightenment, having developed in previous lifetimes, and many, if you read the Jataka tales, times in the animal realms, in godly realms, all kinds of realms, countless lifetimes prior to that, but having developed within those times, when given the opportunity, parami, so qualities, good qualities about himself, qualities of truthfulness, of generosity, of energy, practice. Train now. Samadhi and equanimity. These are the qualities that we develop and have to develop in order to move up and progress towards enlightenment through its various stages of awakening. As we slowly eradicate greed, hatred and delusion and cut away or cut the fetters, the ties to samsara, to suffering, to rebirth, the ties to personality view, the ties to rites and rituals, the restrictions caused upon us by doubt. Those are the three main areas of our work that we concentrate to progress to the level, the first level of enlightenment, sotapanna, abandoning personality view, abandoning any doubt, understanding the Four Noble Truths, culminating in the Noble Eightfold Path, and that its practice is the only way to reach final enlightenment, reach nibbana. With no doubt in that, and without relying on a kind of prayer and worship and good luck and external help from powers that we may believe in, but to know that our own freedom from suffering will come about as a result of our own practice. The Buddha gives us the Dharma. It isn't a God to pray to, it is tools to use to relieve our own suffering and break free of those fetters, those ties to samsara. So in a way, the opposite effect of that elephant being tied with a fetter, it just means a tie, to a stake, eventually when we're trained, you can imagine this taut rein holding the elephant or the horse as it gallops around. When it relaxes, this becomes loose, and the fetter, the tie, can just be unhooked from the stake, and you have achieved a freedom from suffering in this lifetime. And at that level of attainment, with the development of those parami, those qualities, you will not be born into any other realm lower than human. It is said for the next 7 lifetimes, in order to enable you to eradicate any past bad karma that may have accumulated to date. You wouldn't have been born into this human realm and into this Buddha sasana, that is the time when the Buddha's teachings are available and accessible to us, the Dharma, with the Sangha supporting that, if you didn't have sufficient good karma already. So you have already, by that account, paid back bad karma of past lives and enable yourselves to be free from rebirth into lower realms than the human rebirth, that is the animal realms or hell realms. Now I know some of you might think, oh well, the animal realms aren't that bad. I mean, I look at this cat and think, you've got sometimes a better life than me. You can just meditate all of the time, lay around, you're fed, you don't even have to worry about robes. You've got fur, you just clean your fur. Such a nice, easy life. But of course it does have to, really in order to survive, it does have to kill. It has to kill other sentient beings. I don't think they can eat vegetables and wouldn't know how to if they could grow them, and so on and so forth. So that's a big obstacle in its path to development. And if we want to become free from samsara and attain to nibbana, then we have to be in this realm. So you finally say, can a pigeon, for instance, get good karma and be reborn as a human being? And you know, that's not a silly question. It may have already, and just have a short life as a pigeon. And you may think, oh, that poor pigeon, it didn't last long. But that may have been its good karma. The results of early death may be because you only had to be living for a short while to pay back some karma, bad karma, unspent. So it doesn't necessarily mean that this pigeon only had a short life because it created bad karma. It could have been that it served its time, so to speak. So then did go on to be born into the human realm, having paid its penance. And there's many in the Jataka tales of those kind of stories, detailing as examples, not scientific evidence or facts or anything that needs to be believed, but examples and analogies and fables and fairy tales to give us an idea about that process. What is going on with the flies? Well, they're just flies being flies. We haven't got them so much today, so I don't worry about the flies. They don't worry too much about me. They like to land on me. They can be a little bit irritating from time to time, but there's nothing you can do about it. You know, this is the nature of where I'm living. We come to just live with other sentient beings equanimously and think, well, you know, they're doing no harm. I think you do go on to say all the problems they can cause. Well, you know, if we worry about all of those things, then we're not going to really get on with our practice. So we just get on with our practice, and you know, if a fly lands on me and gives me some bug or something, which hasn't really happened yet, then I'll have some bug and be ill for a little while, and that'll be another experience to be treated equanimously also. Okay. The effects of hunger. You have a question about the effects of hunger. As I eat only 2 meals a day and no snacks, and sometimes wake at night really hungry, and unusual sensations arise in the body, like anxiety and fear. I won't get up to eat, but instead breathe and remind myself there's no danger. However, this persists. How did or do you cope with this situation? I'd never had a situation waking up in the night like that, hungry. I've had situations where I've been really, really hungry. And I mean really hungry, no food for 3 days and no chance of getting any. And I found that that's made me be able to sleep very well, because you've no energy, and you kind of, this was pre-Buddhism for me, pre-meditation. You know, I was in some situations whereby I was very hungry, and you know, I slept very well. And we don't eat in the afternoon, as you know. And this means that when we do sleep, we don't sleep for very long, but we sleep very well, because we're not sleeping on a full tummy. Now, you say you only eat 2 meals a day. I would wonder when these 2 meals are. Maybe breakfast and lunch would be better than saying having lunch and then a late evening meal, or even an early evening meal, if that's not settling well and it's affecting your sleep. But if you're finishing and you're, say, keeping like the 6th precept and not eating in the afternoon, but you're waking up in the night hungry, then depending on your circumstances, if you're a working person, you're working and you have to go to work in the morning, then maybe being on the 6 precepts all of the time isn't a good idea, because you'll be going to work. You may have time for breakfast, but you've got to lead an ordinary life. We are just meditating as monks, so we're using relatively little energy anyway in the afternoon. I've been living just eating 1 meal, and it didn't take very long for me to get used to it, but like that now for, I think, nearly 10 years, and it's not been ever one of the major problems with my practice. I'm very happy that I can eat my meal. You eat sufficient amount, not too much, not too little, and try and get a good balanced diet. So you're not eating because something looks nice or tastes nice. You really do think about the nutritional value of every mouthful, given the opportunity. But we have little choice. We have to eat just what's offered to us in our bowls as monks. So yeah, look at your diet. I mean, if you're waking up in the night hungry, then there's something you're missing out on in your diet, or it is just simply a craving for food, in which case you should just wake up and get up and sit and meditate, use the Subha practices on food, which I've spoken about before. Think of the unattractive nature of food when it's being partially digested, when it's eating, when it's being digested, coming out the other end. Think of all of these things I've spoken about in the past. And use that as a meditation, or use your hunger, which isn't really hunger. If you're eating 2 meals a day, you're never hungry. You'd have to miss out at least 24 hours before you're hunger is when you're physically unable to do anything. You're weak and you're struggling and susceptible to illness because you're not getting enough nutrients. But if you just feel like a snack because you've given up snacks, then you're just feeling like a snack because you've given up snacks. It's just that. It's not hunger. Ask anyone who's truly hungry about hunger, and you'll know they'll eat anything that you can get. Some just plain rice is so satisfying when you're hungry. Just some plain bread is so satisfying, even stale when you're hungry. You're not fussy, you just need food. That's hunger. If you're waking up in the night with that level of hunger, then you're not eating correctly. You get up and have something to eat, I would suggest. But I think you'd need to give me a little bit more background. As far as anxiety and fear, I'm not sure if your circumstances would need to be pretty difficult if you have fear and anxiety about food, because most people whom are, well, let's put it this way, if you're able to go on the internet and send this comment, I would imagine you have access to food most days. I meet many people each day who don't. And I can understand if they wake up anxious in the night about maybe feeding their family, feeding their mother and father, or their siblings, or their children, and also getting enough food for themselves to be able to go to get food for others to work. I meet people like that all of the time and try and help. But that I could understand anxiety and fear about food. But for most people, I think that's just basic craving for a snack and needs to be seen as just that. My back starts to get extremely uncomfortable and weak after 20 minutes. Minutes. So what does IDK stand for? I don't know, maybe. I don't know what to do. So, just spend enough time at the beginning of your meditation, because 20 minutes isn't very long, is it really, to get your posture correct. And I've spoken about that quite a lot, so I won't go into it in detail now, but keep your back straight, or as its natural position. And if it doesn't matter if you spend 5 or 10 minutes getting a good posture, and then you can meditate for 20 minutes. Don't sit down and think, right, start now, don't move. Make sure you've spent, even now in the morning, we only have 15 minutes meditation together. I'll probably spend up to a minute fidgeting, even just for that short time. I've just meditated for 3 hours prior to that without moving, but even so, I sit down again, I was in a new position, adjust my posture like this, balance, and then sit. Now, if you don't do that right, then you may get pain. You will get used to, with time, with practice, and you can use this back pain, you say, and weak. I'm not sure that weak is quite the right description. You don't require a great deal of strength, implying you mean weakness as opposed to the opposite of strength, to keep your back upright. In fact, if you balance, then it requires no effort whatsoever just to be awake. If you go to sleep, then you might rock forward like that. But if you're awake, you will naturally sit back. So think more carefully about your posture, adjusting accordingly. And if you have to move after 20 minutes, you're saying extremely uncomfortable. It isn't comfortable meditation at first. Not until you can get into samadhi, states of absorption, whereby your body is, you are more equanimous to the feelings of the body, until there is such a time that the feelings of the body are so subtle you can hardly notice them at all. This is the object of meditation. It is not to be all comfortable and relaxed. Otherwise you can just go and sit in a chair or lie in bed to be comfortable and relaxed. You need to be sitting upright in order to be awake and keep energy vitalization or energy flowing. Keep you awake and alert to all that's going on, and be able to pay attention long term on your meditation object. This is meditation, and it's not expected to be overly comfortable at first. However, with time and with practice, it will become, this is how I sit all of the time, whether meditating or not, because this has now become my most comfortable position. I suppose my body has adapted to it, as will yours. And that's a good thing, because when you meditate you have to think less about your posture. It comes naturally. It's your ordinary default position. I want a video about the difference between Tibetan and Theravada Buddhism. I think I spoke about, and more specifically you say, in Western countries Tibetan Buddhism is very popular. So yeah, I think I spoke about that recently, about different traditions, so I'll skip through that. Is it helpful, Bhutto mantra, to focus on the breath? So I would use either Bhutto as a mantra, so Bhutto, it's like Buddho in 2 syllables. Actually it could be any 2-syllable word really that invokes inspiration in you, and fairly neutral word, but it's more of the sound, the tone, and the nature of it being 2 syllables that is the important aspect of that as a meditation object. And it is very useful when going about daily activities which don't need thought, to center your mind, bring your mind back to Bhutto, 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 especially if you have an overactive mind. When you first sit, you may be thinking about many things, so just say Bhutto, 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 even quickly, slowly, maybe slowing it down gradually, but just to bring your mind inwards towards one meditation object, but not really in conjunction with the breath. If your meditation is with the breath as an object of meditation, anapanasati, breath meditation, knowing the breath as you breathe in and the breath as you breathe out, that is enough. You don't need to couple that with a mantra also. So I'd say it's not necessarily helpful, because it's a distraction. Do one or do the other. Both good, maybe for different sets of circumstances. When sitting in formal meditation, I would suggest that the breath is by far the best. But when maybe perhaps just walking around, trying to maintain mindfulness throughout all of your daily activities, Bhutto will help as that stake, as a tether to bring your mind back in to a center as you continue through your day with a mantra in the background, Bhutto, Bhutto, Bhutto. But usually some people might Bhut on the in-breath and Do on the out-breath, but I mean, that's just a label, a sound, a thought. You're still with the breath, aren't you? You're still watching and knowing that you're breathing in and knowing that you're breathing out. However you label it, structure it's the tone or the sound, I don't think it's a necessary part of anapanasati. But it's a very useful tool in other areas. Okay, so this person has written me 4 or 5 pages of comments, but I've highlighted the questions. So forgive me for not reading your whole script, but really I can't. I try not to read stuff online. I mean, we can all read. Anyone can read the comment anyway, so that's good. I know it's been read. I've read it. Thank you for your comment. But the questions part is what we cover here. But I do have to go through the text to find the question. So my first question would be, what really is that feeling or belief? So this is in relation to your other experience of other religions, I think. Is that feeling or belief? So we don't really talk about belief in Buddhism. So I won't talk about it now. I mean, belief means you have to believe in something you don't know that it's true. In Buddhism is a philosophy, a teaching, a way of life that is experiential, to be experienced for yourself, to be practiced, and for you to see the results. And they are as they are, what you see, just that, not something to be believed in. So when you realize that your suffering is coming about as a result of desire for having something you haven't got, or not having something you have got, then you can work on eradicating the desire to alleviate that suffering. And that is just the truth, one of the Four Noble Truths, or that is the Four Noble Truths. And the way to do this is by following the Noble Eightfold Path. This is the Buddhist teachings. It's not a belief system or a feeling. It is just that, the truth. So that's for another philosophy, a religious belief system, which Buddhism is not. It does have its areas of such, but they're not a requirement and not what we're talking about here in terms of the practice for ourselves. I believe greatly in the power of meditation. I just personally don't know how to achieve that. I'm finding it hard to find. So just experience meditation. When there's no need to believe in the power of meditation. Experience for yourself the power of meditation, how it improves everything, not only whilst meditating, but throughout all of your daily activities thereafter, with practice. And then you will know how you achieve all the benefits from meditation. I don't know if I should worry about my breathing or breathe normally. No, don't worry about your breathing. You've been breathing your entire lifetime without worrying about it. Hopefully, you've not been ill. And it will just happen. You're going to be breathing in, you're going to be breathing out. Just breathe normally and observe the breathing. Observe breathing. That's all you need to do. I use substances, nothing major or life-threatening, but it's not something I really want to give up. I don't know if this would block progress in certain aspects or if it's something that can coexist with Buddhist beliefs. Again, there's no beliefs, and no, it cannot coexist. The fifth precept is to refrain from intoxicants. You will not see the results or have any benefits in meditation experientially or belief-wise, with your mind hindered by intoxicants of any nature. So I'm afraid this doesn't include stimulants like coffee or tea or even nicotine. Smoking cigarettes isn't regarded as something that leads to heedlessness or mindlessness. But something like alcohol or marijuana is an intoxicant by the nature of its effect. It can lead to heedlessness and mindfulness, and therefore the breaking of the other precepts. But even if it doesn't, you won't see so clearly and experientially in meditation what is happening. You will find in meditation, like someone said earlier, there is discomfort, there is pain, there is suffering. It is meditation that we're using to identify that, to see it clearly. We do not want to obscure the view in any way by veiling it in an anesthetic of intoxicant or intoxicating substances of any description. We need to see everything, the truth of it, in the raw. So it does not coexist. And then I think this is the last one. Are chakras real or more of a metaphorical thing? Like, do they genuinely probably exist, or is there... No, I mean, in Buddhism we don't talk about chakras. Maybe they exist, but they're energy centers, points. The Buddha doesn't talk about them, and I don't need to know about them in order to be able to practice what the Buddha teaches us. I had a dream where my 3-year-old child appeared to me in a panic saying that this is my last life, and I woke up crying. I now feel urged to practice well and find a teacher in order to continue after death and not be obliterated or spiral down. Could you please advise at what stage will I have sufficiently practiced to ensure individual consciousness surviving after the body dies? Oh. So a dream is a dream, phenomena as we sleep, imagination. And we're not looking to continue into eternal life. We're looking to become free from suffering within this lifetime, sleep peacefully without dreaming, and to not be reborn again into samsara. And that state is not subject to anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, suffering, and not self, as all conditioned in this state things are. So therefore could be considered permanent. However, that implies a measurement of time, which also doesn't exist. So it is inaccurate to describe it even as permanent or not permanent. It is indescribable. That is the state we're looking towards in Buddhism. All of these other ideas that you may be wanting are just what you're wanting for yourself out of what you're experiencing at the moment. So it's like taking a pot of ingredients and saying, well, I want this bit and that bit because that's my favorite, and ignoring everything that's outside of the pot. Everything that's outside of the pot could be what you really could benefit from. If only you look outside the pot and experience it for yourself, then you will see clearly. So that is the practice of Buddhism. And I think where your questions might be coming from are something slightly different. I notice you mainly use the 3 suttas for chanting, Mangala. Oh, I think I've spoken about this before. The Mangala Sutta, Ratana Sutta, and Karyana Sutta. Yeah, they're the 3 core main suttas giving us the teachings on the really Buddhism, on the Dharma, and the way to behave, on the Sangha, that are routinely chanted. And I use them because they fit into my little morning practice session there, which you can join me with live every day at 6 a.m. Sri Lanka time, or any time thereafter, because they remain on YouTube. And then occasionally I might chant the little more devotional chants they use here in Sri Lanka, but not so often nowadays. Could I please ask which stage of practice would one have to sufficiently practice in order to have achieved immortality? I think this is from the same questioner. To continue existing as an individual sense upon death of the body. No, we don't practice that. So we don't, as I've just discussed. Immortality isn't a word in Buddhism. The deathless is not having a body, a physical body and a thinking brain that doesn't die. It is not being reborn again, because we are born into aging, sickness and death. So deathless means no more rebirth. Buddhism must adjust in its teaching according to the time and the society. It must be applied according to the current situation. The Dharma is applicable to all situations, both past and current, and possibly into the future. But it doesn't have to adjust, and hasn't adjusted in 2,568 years. Even the rules that monks and nuns have to live by have remained unchanged in that entire 2.5 plus millennia. So it doesn't have to adjust, as you're suggesting. And if it does, and where it has, different factions have broken off from the core Buddhist teachings and come up with their own ideas, those organizations either haven't lasted and have been and gone, or I would hazard a guess probably won't last as long as Buddhism has lasted so far, unchanged, without adaptation, or is predicted to do so into the future, again unchanged, without adaptation. After all, Buddhism is very simple. It's the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, and those 5 precepts practicing meditation and developing wholesome mind states, reducing unwholesome mind states. What has to change about that? Whether you're in the time of the Buddha, the modern current era, or in the future, there is still suffering, a cause of suffering, an end of suffering, and the path leading to the end of suffering, unchanged. Ewan. QED, as they say. Although we are meant to be in the present moment, I can't help but feel that I'm not worthy of practicing Buddhism for the trouble I've made in the past. Of course you're worthy. You are a sentient being who is worthy, deserving of metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, joy, and other people's equanimity towards you. And you're worthy of generosity anyone's wanting to offer a fellow human being, another sentient being. Kindness. All beings are worthy of such, whatever they have done in the past. Angulimala Sutta, I won't go through it all, you all know it, or look it up, Google Angulimala, a murderer of 999 people, a serial killer of the worst kind, collecting all those fingers around his neck in a necklace until he reached the Buddha, his final victim. He was going to kill 1,000, and then he was stopped in his tracks. He ordained, became a monk. He had some very bad karma to face up to and pay, but he did that and became an arahant. Anyone can change. The past is the past. Leave it behind you. It's what determination you make from hereinafter that is important. So determined to keep the precepts and practice meditation, then you are following the teachings of the Buddha, and that is practicing Buddhism, to which everybody is entitled and worthy and justly deserving. How do we really do the question of not doing? Want to practice, but I get in my own way. So overthinking, papancha, proliferation, analysing. So I had a message or an email or something about someone's meditation, and finally, is this right? Well, the answer I would have liked to have given, but I probably didn't, I can't remember now, was, well, do you feel better as a result of it or not? If it made you feel better, more content, less stressed, more relaxed mentally and physically, then you're doing something right, it's working. But we shouldn't get too over analytical about everything. So not doing is simply that. It isn't some kind of high idea or something that needs an essay or a lecture on. At the moment I'm not walking, I'm sitting. So I'm not doing walking. So anything you're doing whilst you're sitting in meditation, or anything you were doing before you were sitting in meditation, as you sit down to meditate, you stop doing. So that's how you do not doing. You just don't do it. You stop. You stop in your tracks. You leave the past in the past. And you don't think about the future. The past is just memories which are unreliable, and the future is just imagination. Leave them outside and sit within this current and present moment, enjoying not doing anything. And that is just not doing, without thinking about, am I not doing right? There's no right, there's no wrong, because there's no doing of anything to be compared to, judged, criticized. There's no reason to delve any deeper than knowing you're not doing something. It's that. It's just that. The way I understand anicca, dukkha, anatta is that all attachments are impermanent, suffering, and out of our control. But there are plenty of things that are impermanent and not self, but are not suffering, because me or someone else is not interested in them. Like random acts. No, like random rocks or twigs or branches. So actually, just starting with the beginning there, the way I understand anicca, dukkha, anatta is that all attachments are impermanent suffering. No, all conditioned things, whether they be your attachment to those conditioned things or the things themselves, are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self. So your rocks or twigs are still impermanent. And they may be to someone unsatisfactory, to another they may be ultimately pleasurable. And as far as that opinion is concerned, that is an opinion of the individual's own perception, based on their own experience of that thing, which is to some extent what makes up their view of themselves. So they may consider themselves to be a person who does not like rocks and does not like twigs, or they could be a person that loves rocks and really loves twigs. But either way, those twigs are unsatisfactory because they're impermanent and they're not within your control. The life they have on this planet is not within your control, and therefore they are not a part of yourself, whether you like them or dislike them. That's the true meaning of anicca, dukkha, anatta in relation to your twigs and rocks. Okay. How do you maintain some kind of mindfulness whilst interacting with others? Interaction with others is very difficult for me. Just listen carefully. Mindfulness really just means being careful and attentive to everything you're doing. So if you're interacting with others, know you're interacting with others. Interact with others mindfully. How do you maintain mindfulness? Well, make sure your mindfulness is on the interaction with others. Don't try and maintain mindfulness on your breath or on bhutto, bhutto, bhutto whilst you're interacting with others. No, interact with others with mindfulness on your interaction with others. As I'm trying to be mindful interacting with you right now, I'm not mindful of my breath or bhutto, bhutto, bhutto. I may be a little bit in the background, but I'm really concentrating my mindfulness on talking to you now and understanding the comment in front of me in order that I can reply carefully with hopefully appropriately chosen words to give you a satisfactory reply. This is interacting with others mindfully. The process of the interaction is mindful. If they're carrying out activities that are inappropriate or saying things that you find inappropriate, for instance, then you can make your excuses and leave that situation. You don't have to even make judgment, and you don't have to encourage, you don't have to dissuade. You can just leave that opinion aside and just know that that is the feeling that's arising within you mindfully as you interact with others. So hopefully that's what you were meaning by that, and I've covered what you were asking. A question about not killing. In my bathroom I daily get visits from silverfish insects. I must confess I don't know what they are, silverfish insects. Formerly I have been killing them. If I kill them, am I helping them to be reborn into a new being? Or is it for the greater good of the residents in this apartment building, for the insects? Okay, so there's no excuse for killing anything. Do you want someone to come and kill you so that you can have a better rebirth? There's no knowing what your rebirth will be, is there? And you don't want someone to come and kill you. Neither does the silverfish. When you try to, I don't know what one is, but whatever it is, I'm sure when you try to catch it, it runs away. Let them be. Ask someone to humanely come and remove them. That is, take them to another location, or just live with them, let them be. I live with many insects in this room here. Some of them are a bit stingy, some of them possibly you wouldn't want they crawl over me in the night, but I'm asleep, so I don't know. But I just let them be, and I put up with it. If I got rid of them, if I removed them, however carefully I removed them, they're all going to come back in a few minutes later anyway, because everything's kind of open here. So yeah, as far as the other, there's no greater good when it comes to killing. Killing is killing. You do not kill sentient beings. This is the first precept, and as soon as you do, you've got a lot of karma to repay. The most literal effect or immediate effect is by killing, you are developing unwholesome mind states, and when you come to meditate, you will not be able to meditate peacefully, you will not be able to sleep peacefully, you will not be able to live peacefully if you've been killing. The reason people have excuses for killing, i.e. they were putting something out of its misery or it was for the greater good, is because they need excuses in order to live with the fact that they've killed something or someone. No one says, oh, I killed this ant, I really enjoyed killing this ant, or I killed this person, I really enjoyed the actual process of taking a sentient being's life away from them. Nobody says that. They say, I had to kill this person for the greater good, or I was instructed to do so, or I had to kill this ant because they're poisonous and they're breeding, or I had to. There's always an excuse, and when there's an excuse, it is just that, an excuse. So rather than have to make up or find the excuse, just don't do it in the first place. Do not kill. That's it. Simple. So I love about Buddhism, it's so very simple. I think I've probably spoken for long enough now. So on that note, I will hope there's something there you can use. If there is, please use it and share it. If not, then just let it go. Until next time, be happy and stay well. And Sukhi Hotu.